Hey folks, Pat here from DNS, and this Madison area fishing report is current as of Friday, June 6th. Well, happy Friday, everybody. You made it through another week. Congrats on that. We do have a lot of stuff to talk about, so let's just get right into it. Just a recap here, the Yahara Fishing Club had their kids fishing event down here at the Warner Park Lagoon right behind the shop. You can see the rainbow shelter in the background. You're going to see a lot of smiling faces here and actually some nice fish. Some really nice bluegills were caught and some little bass and stuff like that, but most importantly, a lot of kids had a great time. 350 of them walked away with a free rod and reel combo. And well, I guess I take that back. This little guy here, he doesn't look too happy about his brother catching a fish and not him. But anyway, we'll say almost all the kids were happy. But it was a great event. Thanks to the Yahara Fishing Club for hosting it and getting so many kids over the years into fishing. We are proud to be a sponsor of that, and we will be back hosting it again next week. And so, speaking of great events, this weekend is the DNR's Free Fun Weekend. They used to call it the Free Fishing Weekend. I guess they call it the Free Fun Weekend now. Anyway, free fishing. You can get out, and if you don't have a fishing license, you can get out and fish legally. You don't even need a trout stamp. And you can get into state parks without an admission sticker, state trails. It's a great opportunity to get out. If you got a friend or a family member that always says, well, I don't have a license, now is the weekend that they can't use that excuse. So get out there and enjoy some of the great resources we have here in our fine state. Leeches here at the shop. We have leeches. I just got another big order in. They're a good size leech. If you want to come in and stock up, we sell them half pounds and pounds. So yes, swing in and stock up. They start to kind of taper off usually around 4th of July. So I'll keep you posted every week on the reports here as to what's going on. We're going to be talking a lot about spawning here in the report, mostly bluegill spawning. And one of the best ways to catch those fish is with one of these 1/32 ounce jigs. Half a red worm on the back is pretty hard to beat. Also pretty hard to beat a willy worm, which I talk about a lot here at the shop. So we've got those. Swing in and stock up on that, or flies. Noah Humfeld was talking in that Larry Smith short about flies and how effective they can be for bluegills. You don't have to fish them on a fly rod either. You can cast them out under a rocket bobber, and they work really great. Pink squirrels are my number one choice for subsurface bluegill flies anyway. And we got those tied by Uncle Kurt here. We also have Uncle Kurt's peacock nymph, which is also a great subsurface bluegill fly. But I was out this last weekend, and I was catching fish on the nymphs for sure, but I noticed a lot of bluegills following my strike indicator as I twitched it across the top of the water, so I thought I'd tie on a popper, which is typically more of a late season thing, and started just pounding the bluegills. So this Al's gill gurgler is a great little fly. I caught a bunch of fish on those, and then just to mix it up, I put on some of these poppers and was doing well on those, but these ones with the rubber legs and the kind of fancy paint job work great. I pulled off the rubber legs and did even better. So anyway, swing in and get some poppers, get some flies, and go catch yourself some bluegills. The front doors only got a couple posters out here. We got a blood drive up the street at the church on the 15th of July. And then today, actually, out in Richland Center, the Driftless Angler is hosting their fly fishing event. It's like a movie event, and it's a big deal. They got it at the Starlight Drive-In Theater up there, right as you come into Richland Center, and all kinds of stuff centered around this event, but including a casting competition, which is being hosted by friend of the shop here, Kaylin Hoggard, who is a casting instructor and fly fishing guide, and also was newly added to the USA fly casting team. Yes, there's the USA fly casting team. So anyway, great guy. This looks like a really fun event. Harley's going to be up there competing in it, and we are happy to be a sponsor. So if you find yourself in Richland Center today or are looking for something to do this afternoon, get up there and check it out. It looks like a really fun event. I guess we can get into the report. As far as tournaments go, there's only one, but it's a big one. It's down on Wabisa. They're launching out of the Green Lantern. It's the Angler's Choice Bass Series tournament is coming to the Madison area, and that'll be all day Saturday and Sunday. But since they're launching out of the Green Lantern, it is 60 boats, which sounds like a lot, but they're spread out across the whole chain, and they're launching out of the Green Lantern, so they're not taking over any one public launch. So you might not even notice that they're out there, but just wanted to let you all know. Weather-wise, we started the week off warm with temps in the upper 80s and just over an inch of rain here in Madison on Tuesday night. Cooled things down just a bit. Outside of a little chance of rain Sunday into Monday, the weekend looks beautiful with temps in the 70s, and that's supposed to continue on through next week. So you can't blame the weather if you don't get out fishing this week. The Mendota buoy, let's check her out. She's reading 66.9 degrees, which is almost 8 degrees up from where we were this time last week. So that warm temperatures we had in the 80s last week really warmed up some of the water temps, and that's going to get the fish generally in a better mood. So speaking of generally around the chain, a lot of spawning going on right out there right now. It really depends on what lake you're on and what species you're talking about, though. For instance, down on Kegonsa, you got largemouth bass wrapping up, and bluegills have been on beds down there for a couple weeks. Wabisa and Monona, you've got bluegills on beds and largemouth bass on beds, maybe finishing up on Wabisa. But then up here on Mendota, you've got smallmouth bass. I just heard 2 days ago, smallmouth still on beds, crappies on beds. Largemouth are setting up on beds, and the bluegills haven't really fully set up yet. I've heard a couple reports, but it's not game on yet. So the water's got to warm up just a little bit more, and they should get going there too. So, but spawning really is kind of the name of the game, like I said in the intro of the report. So, and I guess since we're talking about spawning, I'll just do my little thing here. I would encourage folks, if you're fishing beds, to not keep fish so we can continue having the outstanding fishery we have here in Madison. Just let them do their thing, and they'll be there when they're done in a couple weeks. But otherwise, if you can get away from the weeds that are starting to get thick in a lot of the shallow areas around town, you can definitely find some good panfish action for gills. Spikes or waxworms on an ice jig, or redworms on a little bit bigger jig are working well for those fish. For crappies, crappie minnows on a small jig, or jig-shaped, minnow-shaped plastics on a jig under a bobber is a pretty safe bet. Bass anglers have been doing well on pretty much any number of presentations. Ned rigs, or tube jigs if you're fishing slow. Chatterbaits and lipless crankbaits if you want to, if you're moving them through. But everybody's doing pretty well on bass out there. Walleye anglers are pretty happy. Folks fishing from shore have been having success, mostly during low light hours, casting paddle tail swim baits, jerk baits like husky jerks, if you can avoid the weeds, which are starting to come up. If you're in a boat, though, those same shallow areas can be good during low light hours, but we're deeper rocky shoreline breaks adjacent to those shallow flats if you're fishing during the day. If you want to fish live bait, walleye, fatheads, blacktail chubs, and small suckers are great. Leeches, we have those in, of course, and those are great. Fish those on a jig, drop shot, or a slip bobber can all be super effective. If it's pike you're after, they'll grab just about anything you toss out there. But if you want to fish live bait for them, large shiners are a pretty safe bet. I haven't heard much in the way of muskies. I know a lot of times folks that do fish those like working a bucktail over the weeds. But that action should be picking up here now that June is picking up. It tends to start to get pretty good. And don't forget about trout. I'll get into more details like I do at the end of the report in my trout feature, but we've only got a couple more weeks before the weeds, bugs, and heat take over. So get out there and enjoy it while you can. We'll just get into a little more detail up here on Cherokee, up on the north side. It's pretty weed choked up there. There are some pockets, and folks are still getting some fish. I've also heard about some good topwater action for bass. If you got a small watercraft, you can launch here at the school road launch and get out into the main channel and find more or less weeds and more fish. A lot of bass and pike up there. The 113 bridge area. Catfish are still the star of the show down there. Folks are getting them mostly on crawlers. Cut bait still works. Otherwise, I've heard about some walleye down there, the occasional walleye. You get some bass and pike swimming through. You never really know what you'll get. Also, North Bay is great for catfish right now. Pretty soon, though, those fish will be moving back out into the main lake, and we'll talk about that in a couple weeks when that happens. And then you can catch them pretty much anywhere. Otherwise, out on Mendota, like I said, bluegills aren't quite there yet, but look for them in shallow areas. Smallmouth bass are in rocky areas, rocky breaks mostly. You'll find walleyes in those same rocky breaks. Largemouth bass are up shallow, sitting on beds. Pike are pretty much everywhere. If you're looking for gills, look in shallow inlets like Marshall Park and Spring Harbor, Dangle Bay, or shallow flats like University Bay down here, North Bay, if you're looking for those gills. Otherwise, Tenney Park's got a good, always a nice mixed bag of fish there. You never know what you'll find. Great walleye fishing at night. The Yahara River's got some white bass in there right now if you're into white bass. Otherwise, again, a nice mixed bag there, walleye and stuff. Fish down here where the river dumps into Lake Monona can be good. A lot of fish like to hang out there. Can be a really great night spot too. Otherwise, on Lake Monona itself, you've got bluegills spawning pretty much everywhere. Everywhere shallow, you're probably going to find beds. Again, I do encourage folks to be not keeping fish if they're on beds, but look to places like Chervil Bay, Weechowuk, formerly known as Squaw Bay. Monona Bay was super weedy, I talked about last week. Now they've got had the weed cutters in there this week, so it's a lot more fishable. Otherwise, they are getting gills still out on the Monona Terrace wall. The crappies have kind of disappeared. I imagine that's because they're just finishing spawning on Lake Monona, so they'll probably move back there as things, once they're done doing that. Otherwise, I hear about some walleyes here and there. Actually, walleyes off the Monona Terrace wall too. A couple muskies, but nothing to really write home about just yet. But like I said, June is a great time where that action starts to heat up. Otherwise, Lake Winger, a lot of tiny gills there. You got good largemouth bass fishing and some muskies in there. Down the chain past Monona, we got Upper Mud. The Dredge Hole is a great spot for panfish holding in there. A lot of largemouth bass in the shallow flats around there, but the weeds are getting pretty thick. Same thing down on Wabisa. They did have the weed cutters in after I complained about the weeds last week. They had them in that day, I guess, cutting weeds up in Lake Farm area. So that's good to fish now, as is the south end for bluegills in the shallow flats down there. Heard about some crappie action along between Babcock and Bible Camp and kind of that rocky area, and some walleyes mixed in there. Otherwise, down on Kegonsa, good panfish action up at Fish Camp County Park, and really anywhere around the lake, shallow water. If you can find some weeds, you'll probably find fish. And I've heard about some walleye along the Kegonsa State Lake Kegonsa State Park over there. So yeah, give that a look. Otherwise, for other things going on in the area, I haven't heard much off the Indian Fort or Jefferson dams. It's just going to be a nice mixed bag there the rest of the summer. You know, some catfish come through, and they do get some nice flatheads up at Jefferson. Otherwise, the walleyes have kind of moved back down the river into Lake Koshkonong. I know the Bait Box on the Rock hosts a weekly fish tournament out there. Sounds like they've been catching fish in the lake itself, but the guys who are winning the tournaments are still catching them up in the river near Black Hawk Island, it sounds like. Otherwise, Beaver Dam's got a good catfish bite going on right now. The Wisconsin River is fishing very well. The levels are back down to very fishable levels, and the smallies are done spawning. They've moved back to their normal haunts, go to the downstream edges of sandbars, outside edges where it's typically a little bit bigger. You can maybe find some wood. Fish wood is good. You can also find walleyes in those same spots. Otherwise, up and down the river, same thing as on the Rock. Your dams are just going to be a nice mixed bag of fish. You might find some white bass, drum, catfish, walleyes, smallies, you name it. Lake Wisconsin's got a lot of good panfish action going on right now in the shallow bays, and also a lot of good numbers of walleyes, but size does sound like it's a bit of an issue. Up at the Dells Dam, same thing. Petenwell, Castle Rock dams are all good. Haven't heard much off the Mississippi River. The folks on the barges are just getting a mixed bag of fish. Sturgeon on the Wisconsin River too. If you're into sturgeon, it's kind of a good time over there. Otherwise, over on the Big Lake, the coho salmon continue their journey up the East Coast. I've heard they're still getting fish at port, but it sounds like Sheboygan's starting to heat up, so those fish are moving up the way here. And you can get out in Milwaukee. I guess they're getting some kings up there. I was talking to Noah Humpfeld the other day, who guides out there, and he's been doing well with some kings and a few cohos here and there. Otherwise, the Milwaukee River, and there aren't going to have any fish running up there, but it's a great smallmouth and pike fishery this time of year. So as far as trout goes, fishing's been great. Creeks are in good shape. I'll just kind of segue that into my Happy Fly Day feature. You got nymphs. You can use any number of nymphs and catch fish. Woolly buggers are always good, but right now it's kind of prime dry fly season. So blue-winged olives popping off everywhere. You got caddis popping off, mostly in the evenings these days. Other hatches you might run into would be crane flies, which are, sometimes the fish keying on those, and sulfurs. So sulfurs or pale evening duns are coming off. The pale evening duns are whiter or creamier. The sulfurs are bright yellow and bigger. But if you see some of those come off, you're going to want to have them in your box because the trout definitely key in on that. And then the hex fishing is coming up. So the Hexagenia lombata is the largest mayfly that hatches in Wisconsin. They hatch usually in June, almost always at night, and usually on hot, humid nights when it's horrible to be out there fishing. But the big fish key in on those fish. I mentioned Harley's got his guide license now. He's got these fish pretty dialed with these hex hatches. So if you want to experience that with somebody that knows what they're doing, give Harley a call. Just contact us here at the shop and we can put you in touch with them. But yeah, hex hatch is a very exciting time. If you want to know more about it, we can call the shop and we'll talk to you about it here. Otherwise, that pretty much does it for the report. I do want to thank you for tuning in. Sorry it's so late on the post here. Post your comments and catches below. We love to see that. And yeah, call the shop at 241-4225 if you want us to expand on anything, or you want to book Harley for a hex night fishing hatch trip. Otherwise, yeah, thanks for tuning in. Good luck out there, and we'll talk to you next week. Take care.